Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought I would try my hand at a post-combine mock draft here just for fun. Now, I do pay attention to the players. I watch highlights of all the skill players, not so much the defensive players because I don't know as much as far as what I'm looking at. But I read a lot about these guys. I try to predict how the draft would go, like a lot of football fans. And I don't think you'll take a huge issue with a lot of my picks. But it's just one interpretation from someone who just enjoys the sport and enjoys the draft process. But I'm not necessarily a scout here. So don't freak out if the picks I make aren't exactly the ones that you would make, especially if you know your team a little bit better than I do. So let's click start here and get a move on. Obviously, the Raiders are taking Fernando Mendoza. We don't have to talk about that too much. It's really just a question of, exactly how good is Mendoza going to be? Are we talking about close to an elite quarterback, or are we just talking about like a Derek Carr sort of thing, or a Geno Smith? It'll be interesting, but he does have a lot of tools, maybe not high-end tools, but this is just what the doctor ordered for a Raiders team that's pretty much drowning in mediocrity at best. Next on the clock is the Jets. And the Jets, I go back and forth on these defensive players because everyone has their opinions about them and everyone has their favorite. Now, the Jets have traded away a lot of players on defense and kind of need to reload, even though they need some other things too. It's a little early for a wide receiver here. Obviously, there's no quarterbacks available. I've landed on Arvell Reese here simply because he seems to be the most versatile player that can be molded and do a lot of different things for a defense. And I think that's a great fit for a defense that just needs a lot of help. So I'm kind of going chalk here and just taking Reese. But I think it makes a lot of sense in a draft like this that might be a little weaker, but you have this player that you can see all the potential that he has in many different facets of playing defense in the NFL. Now we get to the Cardinals at number 3, and this is probably the point where I should start talking about Jeremiah Love and just my whole take on this player and the idea of taking a running back this high. I'm one of those people that always says, running backs are being devalued, running backs are more important than people think. And now here I am with a running back that I could take in the top 5, and I'm considering not doing it. And why is that? Well, it's nothing to do with the player themselves. I liked everything I've seen from Jeremiah Love. And then he goes in the combine and runs under a 4.4. And it's like, not that the 40 time is everything, but you're just like, okay, what can't this guy do? I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan over the years, and I think he's in that ballpark, honestly. I think he's deserving of a top 5 pick. The problem for me is that I look at these teams, and I'm just like, these teams are so bad and have so many holes. How are they justifying a running back in the top 5? Or it's sometimes even the top 10. But you can't deny the player and their value, again, especially in a year where a lot of people have question marks as far as the quality of this class. I don't know if I can go Jeremiah Love here. The Cardinals are they're so mired in just, again, mediocrity. They need a guy like Francis Mauigoa is attractive to me just because they need a right tackle. It's unclear if he's going to be able to play tackle at this level. On the other hand, he can also slide into guard. Nobody seems to have a problem with that. And I think this is a team that could still keep building on defense for sure. I'm going to go Mauigoa here. The problem, too, with this draft is you think about trading down. And I don't know if I'm going to do any trades here. If I do, it'll be like 1 or 2 minor ones. But you think about doing trades and you're just like, okay, well, who's coming up and giving away like a second-round pick to move up from, late top 10 up to top 3 or top 5? It's a lot to give up. Now, I think the price won't be as high as previous years because the quality of players maybe isn't quite as good. On the other hand, though, if you have the 3rd overall pick or the 4th overall pick, are you trading that for a 3rd rounder? I don't think so. So we've got to think about what these picks are worth and what teams behind these other teams that are at the top, what they're willing to give. So I don't know if there's going to be movement in the top 10. You never know with the draft. But as it stands now, I think maybe you see one trade, and I don't think it's for a running back. The Titans are up next. Now, this is another team where I've seen love mocked to them. I just can't do this. I think this team is in such disarray. Robert Saleh comes in. I think they just need players. They have running backs. They're not special. Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears aren't special. But you know what? Tony Pollard, especially down the stretch, gave them a lot. And I think Tyjae Spears can do some different things for you. So I think they have enough at that position. I would argue they still need offensive line, and their defense seems to be kind of a mess. So we're looking at best player available here, in my opinion. And I'm not going to take Mansour Delane here. I think one or two corners are going to go in the top 10. This is really high for them, though. Ruben Bain with the short arms is attractive to me here. Sonny Styles, just a versatile linebacker. This is really high to take a linebacker regardless. I would also argue that you still have a leader of your defense that can do a lot of different things for you, so I think Styles is interesting. I'm going to go Bain here simply because I think he's one of the best pure prospects in the draft, despite the short arms. I'm a little leery about this pick simply because this is a team, like a lot of teams near the top, they can't afford to screw up this pick, but almost everyone in this draft has caveats and question marks or reasons not to take them over another position. So that's why I go with Bain here. They get a pass rusher. They keep reloading. They got Jermaine Johnson. They need to get after the quarterback, and Bain can possibly really supercharge that effort. Now we get to the Giants, and this is another team that I've seen Jeremiah Love mocked to, simply because Cam Skattebo broke his ankle. We don't know how long Skattebo will be good and how good he'll be during that span. He's just a different kind of player. And now with a big injury behind him, it's like their running game starts looking a little bit dicey all of a sudden. This is still a team, though, that I think they need some more quality players. I think they're on an upward trajectory. Picking this high, I don't think reflects what kind of trajectory this team is on. I think they have a lot of good pieces in place, but I do still think they keep needing to add here. And I'm going to go with Caleb Downs here. This is a pick that I've made before for this team. Again, you're just looking at who can we get that's going to make the biggest impact on a team that I think needs more impact players, and Downs is a great choice. There was some scuttlebutt about his knee being messed up or having a partial tear. Multiple executives came out from around the NFL said there's no issue with that injury. So I'm not factoring that in this case based on the information we have today on March 6th, 2026. So we'll move on to the Browns here. Obviously, we're not taking a running back. Defense, I'm a little less inclined to take simply because they have a good defense. Now, I think you can always keep reloading, but their offense is in really bad shape, particularly their receivers and their offensive line. Now, we could go, Spencer Fano ended up having short arms, which I hate to keep bringing up the short arms because it does seem like sometimes people are way too concerned about the arm length. But let's face it, I mean, if you have arms that are an inch or two shorter than other players, that's going to affect you. You're going to have to be that much faster. You're going to have to be that much better of a tackler or a blocker in this case. And how many times have we seen guys barely miss a block or barely miss sacking the quarterback? So it does matter. There's no way around that. I'm inclined to, I don't quite have Carnell Tate this high. I might go Mekhi Lemon instead over Tate. We'll see how that plays out. I'm considering those guys at this spot. I'm not sure these guys are worth quite that high of a pick. Monroe Freeling is a 6'7" tackle that people think might be reaching his apex right now, and he's ready to be a great NFL player. He impressed at the Combine. I think tackle is a solid pick here. I honestly think Vega Ione from Penn State is a good choice too. This is really, really high for a guard. But you know what? I think in this draft, you're kind of just looking at getting out of here with a really good player. And so I'm torn between tackle and receiver here. I'm going to go off the board a little bit and take Freeling. This is really, really, really high for him. And it's a little aggressive, but he might be, turn out to be the most complete tackle prospect in this draft, and we're kind of all just finding out about it really late here. So let's move on to Washington, who has a million needs. They basically need an entire defense, and they could use some blocking as well. One need that you don't see on here is wide receiver. I think they desperately need a wide receiver, and I've mocked a wide receiver to them in the past simply because they have Terry McLaurin and not much else. I think Luke McCaffrey is kind of a bit player. I think Jalen Lane has some promise, but he might be more of a kick returner and a third or fourth receiver. The jury's kind of still out on him. I love Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate for the Commanders here. I think taking a defensive player would be wise. I also think that one or two players is not going to transform their defense in a year. And they don't have very many draft picks this year. I'm going wide receiver here. And my temptation for Carnell Tate is I really want to take him because, I don't know, it's just he went to OSU, so did Terry McLaurin, passing the torch sort of deal. But I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon. The more I watch him, I just love him. I've heard people say he might be a slot-only player. It's like, I don't know, maybe not. What if he's not just a slot-only player? If he is a slot-only player, he looks awesome to me. I think I'm willing to live with that. A lot of great wide receivers right now are playing out of the slot quite a bit. And I've seen the guy run deep routes and catch deep balls. I've seen the guy catch all kinds of different passes and run all kinds of different routes. I don't think that stuff is much of a concern. He had that weird interview, but, I mean, who cares about that? That's just people content farming. Who cares? I love the guy, and I think Washington, at least you accentuate the good things about your team that you do have, which is Jaden Daniels. So why not at least, when your defense is over there being terrible, one player's not going to make a difference. Why not add to the one strength that you do have? So that's why I go wide receiver for the Commanders. The Saints. Okay, now, this is a team that I would argue is in a great spot to take Jeremiah Love. The reason being, yeah, their defense isn't anything special, but they can play some defense. They've been building an offensive line. They could keep building an offensive line, but they don't necessarily have to do that in round one. That would be a decent idea, but then you have Tyler Shuck, who had a good start to his career. Chris Olave seems to have a great rapport with him. They do also need a receiver, and as a receiver is mocked to them a lot. I like Jeremiah Love for them simply because Alvin Kamara is pretty old by running back standards. He might be done. I mean, we're at the point in his career where any year it could be he could lose it in any year. So I think Jeremiah Love slots in nicely. You want to talk about helping out Tyler Shuck? How about a running back that can run the ball a lot and that can be thrown to, and make plays on his own, make splash plays, and win games for you? That's another reason I think, while I wouldn't take a running back to a terrible team in a terrible offense, I do think a team like this that might be on the rise and has some pieces in place are better suited to take on a player like this and take most advantage of them. The Chiefs are up next. The Chiefs, I think they need to reload at pass rusher. They also traded Trent McDuffie to the Rams for a late first-round pick, which I don't know. I guess they just didn't want to pay him when the time came. Seemed like a player they could use. I could see them taking Mansour Delane here. I could see them taking a receiver or an edge rusher. Really hard to figure out, but they could use offensive line as well. I'm most comfortable with them taking Delane and just reloading at that position. So let's do that here, and then we'll see what's left for them at pick, I believe it is 29. Am I right about that? Pick 29. Yeah, we'll see what's up. When they get to 29, maybe there's a receiver or a guard available, or a pass rusher. Bengals are up next. They need everything on defense. I was actually inclined to give them a guard, but I don't know. I just read yesterday that all their guys are re-signed on the offensive line. So I suppose that means they're okay with their offensive line. I mean, not necessarily to me, but I think they have to keep hammering at defense. Sonny Styles is an interesting pick here. The Bengals did spend 2 picks last year on linebackers. It's kind of unclear how exactly these guys will pan out as far as their long-term effects on improving that defense. I like Jermod McCoy here a lot, not necessarily for the Bengals, but just at this point in the draft. Thieneman had a great combine. He's risen up the ranks. Are we really going to see 2 safeties in the top 10? I don't know. And then you have David Bailey, which is just more pass rush for them. I think they need to keep reloading there because God knows what's going on with Trey Hendrickson. Is he going to be on the team at all? Is Shamar Stewart ever going to pan out? The thing with Bailey is that he beat up on a lot of bad teams, and he seems to be more of a pass rush specialist. He's not a big strength guy. He's just more of a speed guy. Reminds me a little bit of, I don't know, maybe Chop Robinson or something like that, where it's like, yeah, this guy's lean and can move, and his first step is amazing, but can he do anything else? In a draft like this, though, I think you could argue Bailey or Thieneman for the Bengals here. I'll go Thieneman. Like I said, it is weird for 2 safeties to go this high. On the other hand, that's not really how drafts work, right? Every team is looking at what they need and what's best for them. And if there's a weird anomaly in there somewhere, then so be it. Okay, the Dolphins are up now. And all I can think about when I mock draft for the Dolphins is how last year, pretty much when the season started, they were already starting third stringers in the secondary. And I just can't get past that. I think a guard is a really good move for them here just to, again, they have Achane. Why not accentuate the strengths that you do have? But this team is kind of a mess all around. They've been building that defensive line a little bit. Let's go with Jermod McCoy here. Some people might think this is aggressive for him. I don't. He missed the year last year, but I think ACL tears or knee tears are not what they used to be. You can recover from that in a year pretty easily. And then, the guy was lights out in 2024, and he didn't play last year, but even if he had an average year last year, we know how that goes, right? Teams factor in the last couple of seasons you have, or the last 3 seasons you've had, and progression isn't linear, right? You can be an amazing player and have a so-so year, which, let's just say that that's what McCoy had. I think he still goes in the top 20 here. So I don't think this is early for him. And I think he could turn out to be a stud corner. I mean, he has that potential. He's shown it in college. So I think this is a solid pick to rebuild the secondary in Miami. Okay, Cowboys at 12. Sonny Styles is the chalk pick here for a lot of people. Since the Combine, Styles tends to get drafted earlier. So it's not seen as much now as it was pre-Combine. I'm still going to do that here, though, because I think it's a great pick for the Cowboys, who I think they just need a leader and stability on that defense. And Styles, I think he just has proven he can do pretty much everything you would ask a linebacker to do, I think. So I think that's a solid pick for the Cowboys to just try to begin getting their defense right. And, I've heard a lot of talk about, well, you don't want to take a linebacker too high, and that's fine. Supposedly, analytically, they don't affect the game as much as other positions. I guess. I mean, what happens when you have a tight end running wild against your team in a given week? You'd like to have a linebacker or a safety of some kind that can keep up with a player like that. So I think Styles can do that as well as rush the passer a bit and just be a leader and call the shots on that defense. Okay, now we're at the Rams pick, which I like to corner for the Rams. Obviously, both of the best corners are gone now, so I wouldn't be doing that here. But when one of those guys was available in previous mocks, I would go ahead and give the Rams one because they needed a corner. Well, it turns out they traded for a corner. They traded pick 29 for a corner, a really good corner in Trent McDuffie, I believe. So that's good business if you ask me when I had them taking a corner at this spot. Now, some people have them picking Ty Simpson here because they normally don't pick this high and normally don't have access to a good quarterback prospect. I would argue that that's not really a great argument simply because nobody really knows how good Ty Simpson is. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on whether he's even going to go in the first round. So the argument I always hear is, well, too many teams are quarterback hungry. Like, obviously he's going to get drafted early. Not necessarily. I remember when Will Levis was definitely going in the top 10. I remember when Malik Willis was definitely going in the top 10. Drew Lock was definitely going in the top 10, and they all fell to the second round and beyond. So I don't think Ty Simpson is necessarily the pick here. And I also don't think the Rams are the kind of organization that's going to be like, oh, let's get this guy because we need someone. They're only going to take someone that fits their system and fits what they want to do to a T. And I don't know if Ty Simpson is necessarily that. Plus, this is a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl, okay? So they are not going to take a luxury pick when they're in the middle of trying to make a Super Bowl run. I just don't believe that. So they might go tackle here. We've got Spencer Fano with shorter arms. We've got Blake Miller. Caden Proctor, I think, is probably rated a little bit higher than they have him here at 33. Same with Caleb Lomu. I think he might be higher too, but I haven't looked at all the combine numbers for these guys. I think Proctor is on the rise, though, as far as I can tell. Now, the Rams, historically, I mean, it's been documented. They wanted Teteroa McMillan. They wanted Brock Bowers, and they just couldn't make that large leap up into the top 10 or 15 to get those guys. Now, are they going to do that here? Are they going to take a pass catcher when they already have Devontae Adams and Puka? I think they could, because Devontae Adams isn't getting any younger. I do think they could use a tackle. That's always the smarter pick for me personally. It's like, if you have the trenches locked up, you always have a chance. That's just my theory. And it just provides your team with some stability to add those pass catchers to and those skill players. You give them time to make plays. But I don't know. The Rams are kind of a different breed, and they know what they're doing. I could see Carnell Tate here. I could see Kenyon Sadiq here. Can we make any deals here? They can move back to 17. This is interesting to me. Who would the Lions be coming up for, though? They could be coming up for Bailey. They still need a running mate for Aiden Hutchinson. I don't think that's realistic, though, to trade up for that kind of player. Maybe they really like him, though. We could go with that theory. I'm of the opinion, spoiler alert here, I'm of the opinion the Lions are definitely going offensive line in the first round. They really need to solidify the trenches a little more. It looks like they don't need guards according to this. Whoops, excuse me. Here we are down here at the Lions, who need a tackle and a center. Are they going to move up for a tackle? Probably not. So is there anyone else that wants to trade up? We don't want to move that far back. So we'll just stick and pick here. I think just based on the Rams' history, I can't take Kenyon Sadiq. They just spent a second-round pick on a tight end who had some flashes last year, and they use multiple tight ends anyways. Are they really going to bring in a fourth or fifth tight end? I just don't believe that. Carnell Tate is going to be the pick for me here. I don't love this pick, quite frankly. It's just not a pick that I think they need to make. But it just seems like, if the reports are to be believed, the Rams want another blue-chip caliber receiver. I don't know if Carnell Tate is that, but in this draft, I suppose he might be. Next up, we have the Ravens. The chalk pick for the Ravens has been Ione from Penn State, the guard. I think that's a little too easy, but I could see it happening. They really need to solidify their pass rushers, too. So this is one where I'm kind of torn. I think there will be pass rushers later in the draft and other defensive linemen. I am going to take Ione here. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. One of the most solid prospects in the draft, if reports are to be believed, from draft people and scouts that know these guys a lot better than I do. So that's an easy one. The Bucs are up next, and if you can see their needs here, the Bucs need a few different things. I always feel like the Bucs need pass rushers. I think they would be pleased if David Bailey fell to them here, because even if he is more of a pure pass rusher, that's exactly what they need. They need to get after the quarterback. What's strange about the Bucs is that I consider them contenders, maybe low-end contenders. I don't think they're a rebuilding team at all. I think they're going for a Super Bowl optimally, but they always seem to have a few holes. So let's take Bailey here, who is usually not available at this point. I know I've been dragging him down the board. That's not my intention. It's just the way it goes sometimes. We know how this goes, right? Someone somewhere is going to lose out and drop down about 10 spots that we didn't expect. So that's David Bailey in this particular mock draft. Next up is the Jets again, and it's always fun to make picks for teams that have 2 first-rounders and need a lot of help. So we've gotten Arvell Reese here. Let's take a look at the receivers. We've got Jordan Tyson, who scares me to death because of the injuries, I'll be honest. It didn't bother me as much until it came out that he's been trying to recover from a hamstring for like 3 or 4 months. That's crazy to me. Omar Cooper Jr. I love, and I think he's going to go a little higher than people might expect, but I don't know if that for sure. It's a little high for this player, I believe, and I do think they need to get someone in-house for Garrett Wilson's sanity, but I don't know if it's at this pick. I think they can keep rebuilding the defense here. They've got kind of a linebacker pass rusher hybrid here with Reese. So can we go secondary here? I like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I don't really know if he's worth this pick. And C.J. Allen is a quality linebacker that apparently was calling defensive plays for Georgia. That's not exactly something you hear about every day. And, they have a tight end. They don't need to do that. Their offensive line is in good shape. Caleb Banks is more of a. I'm not big on taking a swing at Banks for a team that needs a lot of help. Mesidor is a little old for a team like this. He's going to be 28 or 29 before the Jets are any good, which isn't necessarily terrible, but still. Keldrick Falk is someone that interests me, and also Terrell, because I think he's a decent corner, decent first-round corner. That could help them. Could they go C.J. Allen here, though? They do need linebacker help. They basically need players at every level of the defense here. And I like some of these defensive linemen, but I think it might be a tad early. Falk is interesting to me because he's so young. He can grow along with this Jets team. But let's go with C.J. Allen. Again, similar reasoning as with Sonny Styles. Not the same player, but you have a quarterback on defense who is calling all the shots. He's a stabilizing factor back there. He's someone you can rely on to be a leader, maybe even be a captain. And I think that's valuable when you're rebuilding an entire side of the football. Okay, now we go to the Lions, which I mentioned before. I want offensive line for the Lions. It looks like they need a tackle more so than a guard. So even though are there decent guards left? Let me see here. Interior. Not really. You have one or two guys that look more like second round picks. I'm a big fan of, well, not a big fan, but I'm a fan of the potential of Caden Proctor. I would like I'd like to pick him here. I have a little bit of concern about some of the rough edges to his game that I've heard about. That's a little dangerous when you're jumping on a moving train like the Lions. They don't really have time to foster people and wait for them to grow. They kind of need to win now. Although I think the potential here is too great. Proctor is huge. He has some things to work out in his game. But let's see, how old is he? 20. He's not even 21 years old. 6'7", 366. I think he'll trim down a little bit from that. But just a massive human being that can play tackle for you. And hopefully as the season goes along, they can work out some kinks in his game, and that'll end up being a coup for a Lions offensive line that all of a sudden needs a lot of help. Okay, the Vikings are up next, and this is an interesting spot here because when people were afraid to mock Jeremiah Love too high, he always went to the Vikings because it's a perfect spot. They need a running back. No running backs to pick here, though. They need a center and a defensive back. I'm inclined to go best player available here besides, I believe they're set at tackle. I could be wrong about that. But I've seen receivers. I've seen Kenyon Sadiq drafted to them, which is interesting because I don't know what the deal is with Hawkinson. I think DB is best, though. I always see Vikings fans every year. They crop up and claim that they don't need a corner. I'm not so sure about that, though, because every year it seems like they need one according to everyone else. I'm going to take Avian Terrell here. This is a popular pick for me. I make this pick a lot for the Vikings just because I think he's a solid corner prospect, and you always need corners, and especially in the Vikings case. So they're always looking for a stud back there. Hopefully they can get one in Terrell that does have some NFL bloodlines too, which is cool. Now we reach the Panthers at number 19, and I think the Panthers could do a variety of things here. They could get a guy on the defensive line. I think they could keep reloading there. They spent real draft capital last year on pass rushers, but I do think that they could attack that position again. I like a lot of different players for the Panthers because I think that them making the playoffs last year was a bit of a mirage. They had a losing record, I believe. So this is a team that still has a lot of work to do. And their tackles are not set either. So I think you can go a lot of different directions here. Getting another pass catcher like Sadiq, I think is interesting to me. Again, Tyson would be in the mix here if it wasn't for the injuries. Mesidor, I don't think this team is ready for a player like that yet, although he's like the most polished pass rusher that's left here. So if you want to turn a team into overdrive and get them over the hump, you could argue that Mesidor would be a player that could do that. Falk is a little young, maybe. I don't know if that's the type of player that I would take. So for me, it's really between Sadiq and Mesidor. I'm going to go off the board a bit here. I'm going to take Mesidor because what if Mesidor comes in at 25 years old, which is really freaking old for a rookie, let's be honest. What if he comes in there and gives you 3 or 4 great years of football and contributes 6 to 12 sacks every single year and a bunch of hurries? I think that's a win. And I think it helps a team like the Panthers establish a great pass rush rotation. And they really finally have something to hang on to on that defense besides Derek Brown and J.C. Horn whenever he's healthy. So could go in a few different directions there, but I like Mesidor there for the reasons I just stated. Now we're at the Cowboys again, another fun team that has a lot of holes, especially on defense, and has multiple first-rounders. We have Sonny Styles in round 1. I say we keep hammering defense here. I would definitely argue that the Cowboys could use offensive line depth, but I'd have to read a little more about that before I make that a solid claim. So who do we want here? We can kind of just spin the wheel on defense and take whoever we like the best, in my opinion. Caleb Banks is an interesting player. I shy away from these interior guys that need work. I don't know why. Defensive linemen that need work. I think they're just a pipe dream more than anything else. Although, I mean, you can't really argue about the size here. 6'6", 330. He's going to be 23 soon. So this is pretty much, I don't know if you'd call him a ready-made prospect, but he kind of is what he is at this point. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I'm a huge fan of. Keldrick Falk, I don't think they would take because he's young and needs a lot of polish. I think they're ready to start winning now. I actually think Mesidor would have been a nice pick here for them. Cassius Howell as well, decent pass rusher. Let's go with... Well, let's look at the corners here. Caden McDonald honestly interests me as well, but they have Quinnen Williams there, so that's a good get. Are there any corners that would interest us? Colton Hood, I think, continues to be underrated in this class. I think he makes it into the first round. Obviously, he's number 32 here, so they're technically not saying he's gonna make it to round 2 either. But I constantly see him drafted right around pick 32, and usually not in the first round. And I don't know if that's going to play out like that. I think he could go as high as 25 or 26. I don't even know who's drafting there, but I think he could go higher. I'm not going to pick him here, though. Let's just take who we think gives them the best chance to win and improve that pass rush. You could argue that there's a different choice here. I'm going to go with Cassius Howell. Keep it in state, I suppose. I do admit that we're at the stage in the draft where I start having a hard time telling the pass rushers apart. So this is a solid prospect from an edge rusher standpoint. And I think the Cowboys need to rebuild that, obviously, after they lost Micah Parsons for this draft pick. So let's go to the Steelers. Now, in my opinion, the Steelers cannot get out of this round without a corner or a receiver. Now, I don't know if there's any corners that are worth this pick. I just mentioned Colton Hood. I'm a big fan of simply just going. I can't take Tyson here. The Steelers are in such dire need of receivers that I can't spend this pick on a player that has not gotten through a healthy season. I just can't do it, or at least a relatively healthy season. It's like even if you get Christian Watson here, you know, you're gonna get Christian Watson for about half of the season every year, and I just don't think that's reliable. And in real life scenarios with real teams and real coaches and real players, you want more stability than that. And you want to have confidence in your playbook and the plays that you want to call. And you can't have a player that's missing every other game. So I'm inclined to take Cooper Jr. here. I like a lot of different players for the Steelers. That Boston, I think, is fine with me. I know people soured on him because he didn't run some of the drills. I think in a lighter draft year like this, where the prospects aren't quite as strong, I think Boston is a decent pick. I'm going to go Cooper Jr. here. I think he might be reaching his apex as a player just in time for the Steelers. He's actually shorter and lighter than I thought he was. I think he plays a little bigger than that. I think this is a great compliment to DK Metcalf, though, and a player that they can build around going forward. Now we get to the Chargers, where every time I hear people talk about the Chargers, I just hear defensive line, defensive line, defensive line. Now, Daniel Jeremiah did report that they're interested in Kenyon Sadiq. And I probably have Sadiq a little low here. I love this player. If the Rams took him at 13, even though they have too many tight ends, it's like I almost would get it. I just couldn't find a great place for him here, except for the Panthers and the Vikings where I passed on him. So I'm just kind of going with the logic that, you know, a lot of these first round tight ends lately they've panned out, but some of them haven't historically. And you know, a lot of these guys that are almost pure pass catchers, I know he can block a little bit, but some of these guys that like are pretty much pure pass catchers, I think you're playing with fire a little bit. Obviously, Colston Loveland was a stud, but he was a stud player in a stud draft year, and he went 10th or 11th overall. So I don't really know if Sadiq is quite that player, but I think he could be. That's why I kind of regret leaving him here this long. But all I hear about is the defensive line. And I like Caden McDonald a lot just because 6'3", 326, you got a big body there. Peter Woods has also been talked about a lot. I'm going to go with McDonald here. I've actually mocked him to the Steelers occasionally just because I think he's just such a solid you're getting an Ohio State interior lineman who I think is going to be able to plug holes and contribute right away. It's very tempting to go with Sadiq there just because he's such a cool player, and I think you could hit pay dirt and get someone elite. You got to play defense too, and I think we can't get too stuck in fantasy football logic, right? Same thing with the Eagles, which, I mean, again, I really regret the idea that I might pass on Sadiq. A lot of people have been just mocking Sadiq to the Eagles because Dallas Goedert's probably going to leave. I don't really know if it's that simple because the Eagles are a team, they're kind of like the Lions, where all of a sudden they need help on the offensive line. And also, to boot, the Eagles, they also all of a sudden need help on the defensive line. So it's like, what are we going to do here? Are we really going to take a tight end when we need blockers and we need pass rushers? I just don't think we can do that. I'm going to go with Spencer Fano here. I know he had the shorter arms. I think he's still a quality prospect. He was a top 10 pick before the measurements. I don't think he can drop too far. You can argue he might have dropped enough already. So we're up with the Browns here. We've got Monroe Freeling. I've actually gone back-to-back tackles with the Browns here before. That's a little crazy. This is a good spot to take a chance on Jordan Tyson. I cannot bring myself to do it. I just think teams are going to be worried about these injuries. So let's go Denzel Boston here. I know it's a bit of a boring pick, but again, this team, especially on offense, needs stability. You get a tackle in the mix, and you get a reliable receiver. I think that's a good start for the Browns in this draft. The Bears are up now, and I tend to go defense here. It seems like that's primarily what they need. A safety is in the mix according to their needs here. Defensive line is what I've heard about the most. And I think I'm just going to take Caleb Banks here because it's a player that, I'm just maybe I'm just not a fan of this guy. I did watch him a little bit, and you're just kind of going on vibes unless you have kind of a scout mentality. But I'm going to get him off the board here because he is a really highly coveted player in this draft. And then you have the Bills, which, I mean, I could even make an argument for Kenyon Sadiq, but they've got 3 tight ends that can contribute a little bit here and there. So I can't do that here. So let's look at, they need defensive backs. They need edge rushers. They always seem to need edge rushers. It's a little strange to me. TJ Parker, some people don't think he's a first rounder. He seems like a good enough pass rusher in this stage in the draft for me. Peter Woods, I think, is becoming a bit underrated, so I might go in that direction. For me, I think it's between Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Peter Woods. Do they use safeties like chess pieces and move them around? I don't know. You've also got a small school guy here where I love the highlights and I love the prospect profile of McNeil-Warren. I can't help but think when I watch guys like this, though, that, it's like I don't really know what I'm watching because, these guys are playing against dudes that are probably more concerned with their accounting class than they are the football game that they're playing in. These are super small schools, and you just see McNeil-Warren just wrecking guys. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, these guys, a lot of them weigh 190, and they're never going to play football after they graduate. So, of course, he's lighting them up if he's a first-round pick. So, love the player. Just for a team like this, again, that doesn't really need to spend a lot of time developing guys or making room for caveats of guys. I like Colton Hood or Peter Woods here for them. You could even go TJ Parker if he's a player you like. So we can go with Parker. I like Colton Hood here as well. I don't know why they always need defensive backs too. It seems like some of these teams always need the same stuff. I'm going to go Colton Hood here. I think he's a first-round corner, and I think a team like this could use a player like that. Now we're at the Niners at 27, and the Niners are another team where it's like all of a sudden they need pass catchers. They've always had pass catchers. They've almost had too many at one point. Now they need more. Basically, all they have is Ricky Pearsall and a free agent or two. So let's go with Kenyon Sadiq here, especially with George Kittle with the Achilles tear. He's not getting any younger either. So unfortunately for Kittle, who is a player that I think everyone likes, I think they need to start thinking about life without Kittle. And even if they're both healthy, Sadiq and Kittle, that's a great combination that Kyle Shanahan's going to get the most out of. Now the Texans are up at 28, and the Texans are a confusing team to me because it seems like they have the best defense in the league right now, or at least they did last year. Things can change, but they keep trading away offensive linemen and having a terrible offensive line. So I don't really know what their logic is there. They just keep spinning the wheel at offensive line, and I think that's where they have to go here. And I'm not going to think about it too hard. Blake Miller is by far the highest tackle or guard on the board, and that's where we go because they keep needing to rebuild that position. They traded Titus Howard, who I don't even know if he's a tackle, but I also don't know how this doesn't say that they need tackles. But I think even if you kick a tackle into guard, I know that's not always a thing that can happen with certain players, but the Texans need help up front is basically the point. So we go tackle there. The Chiefs' second pick, which they got for trading away Trent McDuffie, we've added the best corner in the draft to try to replenish in that area. So where can we go now? I think we can always reload the defensive line. Chris Jones isn't getting any younger, and seems like they can use more pass rush year over year. And we've got some choices here, which is good. We can go interior or edge, which is great. We can also look for a receiver. Jordan Tyson is a pick that we're almost at the end of the round and no one's taking him. I don't know. I just don't know if you can use a primo pick on this guy. Where do you take him though? It's so odd to me. I'm just too risk averse. But I don't think this is a player that the Chiefs. I don't think they can play. I don't think they can afford to mess around with a player like this when they're trying to win Super Bowls. So where else can we go? Let's go defensive line. We'll go TJ Parker just to get a pass rusher in the mix. Like I said, some people don't think he's quite a first-round player. But again, Falk with the youth. Woods, I'm going to go Woods here because he can be a complement to Chris Jones, and if everything works out, he'll take over when the day comes. I know I kind of just made an impulse decision there, but I like keeping the interior sound and maximizing what you have there. And they always need players on defense, the Chiefs do, I think. I think they've had a good defense for a while now, but it always seems to me like it's on the precipice. Like if they lose a player or two, that's it. Their defense is going to kind of fall apart. Like it always feels like the defensive efforts they've gotten have been from the play calling of Spagnuolo and one or two elite players. And I think they need to be mindful of reloading on defense. Now we come to the Broncos. And the Broncos, there's another elite defense like we were talking about with the Texans. I don't think you necessarily need to add there, but they added Jahdae Barron last year because I think he was the best player on the board. So, strength on strength is a way to go. I do think they should keep adding on offense here, though. I'm going to have to scroll a bit because we're getting into the nitty-gritty where there's not as many players as I might have considered previous. Ty Simpson's still down here, which they don't need, but I just want to make a note of that. CC, the corner. I don't think they'll go corner again. Tight ends, center, and linebacker are their needs. I mean, that's a pretty good spot to be in. I think they could use a receiver. Jordan Tyson, do we want to take a chance here? Because, Cortland Sutton's, 30 years old? They don't have much else there. We've got a guard prospect. We've got Caleb Lomu, who, quite frankly, I think is going to go higher than where he's ranked here. But I'm inclined to take a chance on Jordan Tyson here. I think we are at the point in the draft, and you might disagree with this, by the way, but we're at the point in the draft where I personally am comfortable taking the risk here because they do have a good offense overall, and if Tyson can just get his health underneath him and play more games than he misses, I think he could be a stud and a coup for a team that gets him at pick 30. But there's just a lot of teams ahead of pick 30 that I just don't really think can afford to take the chance on a player like this who we just don't know if he can stay healthy. And that's bit me in the past before. There have been players that I just wasn't really I was hesitant to pick them because of their injury history, and then they just stay healthy and they play a bunch of games and they're really good. So that's been known to happen too. I just think the history with Tyson is too much to ignore. At a certain point, it's like, okay, we can't take someone that's not going to play. The Patriots, guard, tackle, edge, linebacker. These are the suggestions for us here. I'm inclined to rebuild the offensive line or get a receiver in the mix. You never know with free agency. I have a feeling the Patriots are going to land someone in free agency. They cut Stephon Diggs, or they released him. That tells me, and Diggs, God love him. His wacky hijinks aside, he made 1,000 yards last year at age 31. That's impressive. So they get rid of a 1,000-yard receiver. Technically, they don't have much else at that position, other than some flashes from a rookie last year whose name is escaping me. And then you have guys like Pop Douglas, who I don't think are any kind of notable receiver. So let's look at the receivers just in case. Casey Concepcion is honestly not a player that I'm high on. He returns kicks, which is valuable, but there's some holes in his game. He has drops. His stats aren't, they're not going to light the world on fire. 5'11", 190 is not big. That's closer to small than big in my book. So I'm inclined to pass on receiver here. Chris Bell has a knee injury. Jeremy Bernard I like a lot, and I think whoever gets him in the second round is going to be really, really happy. But I don't think this is a pick where you would choose a player like that. It's a little high. So we have Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard here, who I'm looking at primarily. Max Ianakor. I should have looked at these names before I started this. Let's take Max here because they do need another tackle. Let's face it. And I think low-key they might want a contingency plan for Will Howard. I'm not saying that Will Campbell, excuse me. I'm not saying that Will Campbell is bad. I know he had a rough Super Bowl. I also know he was injured, supposedly. So I'm not writing off Will Campbell, although I do think some of the problems with his game and with his frame that people brought up last year have come to light, and I think they might be real things that the Patriots might need to work around. So there's nothing wrong with getting another tackle in the mix to groom for that right tackle spot. And if everything goes wrong with Will Campbell, you have a backup plan. So you can look for receiver in the following rounds, which I do think that the Patriots should hammer. Now, the Seahawks have lost corners. They always need interior help. I could take a guard here, but we actually don't even know who's carrying the ball for the Seahawks next year yet. So Kenneth Walker is going to walk, literally. Zach Charbonnet had a major injury. We don't know when he'll be back exactly. So we can continue to build on defense. We can grab a running back, but it's way too early for that. It looks like they need corners as well. This is a spot where I think they might end up taking a corner regardless, because they are going to lose people in the secondary through free agency, and it's almost inevitable that this is going to be a problem area that they're going to need to resolve. So I like CeCe here. He snuck into the first round before. I don't have a problem with anything I've heard about him, and I think the Seahawks just keep reloading that position where I think they're going to have one or two holes after the dust settles in free agency. Okay, so that's the draft in the first round. Honestly, if you know your team better than me, which you probably do, don't beat me up on these. Tell me what you would do differently or why my pick is stupid without calling me an idiot. That I would appreciate. I'm also going to do, in a couple minutes here, I'm going to do the first 5 picks of round 2 just for fun. But what do you think of this? I think the places where I went really off the board was Monroe Freeling. That's really high for him. Mekhi Lemon to the Commanders. I don't see them taking a receiver a lot in mocks, even though I don't know why that is. Love to the Saints, I think, is solid. What else do I have here? Will the Rams actually take a receiver? I think that's pretty interesting. David Bailey fell really far in this draft. What else do we got? Mesidor to the Panthers. I think that's, you could argue that's a bit of a sketchy pick. I love this pick for the Steelers. If one of the top two, if Lemon or Tate isn't available, which I don't think they will be, I love this pick for the Steelers. I think it could be a windfall for them. Sadiq to the Chargers could actually happen in real life. Sadiq going in the top 20 could easily happen, so I might end up looking bad having him fall all the way down to the Niners. But otherwise, there's a few things there I would maybe do differently, but when you're on the clock, things are different. So I have no problem with that. The Jets are up here. And isn't it fun to draft for these terrible teams that have a lot of picks? I love doing this. So we've got Avril Reese. We've got C.J. Allen. Assuming that Reese is going to rush the passer quite a bit, I know it looks like we took 2 linebackers here, but I don't really see it that way because I think Reese is going to do a lot more things than just play linebacker. So we've got arguably a guy at 2 levels of the defense. McNeil Warren is another player, or is at another level of the defense we could go at. And I like that idea quite a bit. Ty Simpson is still sitting here. Do we take a swing at Ty Simpson at pick 33? I think that we do. Because, Ty Simpson, my thing with Simpson is that I think he looks fine. And I think at age 23, he just looks okay. If he was 21, I would be a lot more excited about him. I think the Jets take him at pick 16. I just don't think it's a player that I would do that with early in round 1. I do think that if you want this type of player, you're going to move up for him in the draft, but we didn't get that deep into it here. Let's just assume the Jets traded up and made this pick. But I think this is great. I think they need to keep... we're not at the Jets anymore. I think they keep needing to add receivers for sure, which they can still do in the rest of this draft. So I think this is a great building block for the Jets who, if they get lucky with Simpson, they're off to the races. They've got a lot of different things in place, and they can start building a contender. So that's why you take a swing at a quarterback, right? So with the Cardinals, we took Mauanoa, who might be a tackle, might be a guard, but that's okay because the Cardinals need both. I'm not sold that the Cardinals don't need to keep building on defense. I'm looking at edge rushers here. We could go Caleb Lomu, and we could basically get one whole side of the offensive line. I think that's kind of a cool pick. I don't really know if we want to ignore defense 2 picks in a row for a team like this, but I like the idea the more I think about it. Let's go Lomu here. And then we'll have a guard and a tackle, presumably, for the Cardinals. And then they can move on to other things. Okay, 3 more picks. We'll do the Titans, we'll do the Raiders, and we'll do the Giants. I got to stop somewhere. We've got Ruben Bain for the Titans and Robert Saleh. We can keep rebuilding the defense. We can go at offensive line or receiver. I'm a big fan of... Here's my thing with the Titans. I don't see a lot of offensive linemen mocked to them, and I think that's a mistake because I know they need receivers. They did spend 2 mid-round picks on receivers last year, and both guys made contributions. So what's to say that they have some pass catchers? They have Gunnar Helm at tight end. They've got 3 rookie pass catchers that did a few things for them last year. So even though I want to give them a stud receiver, I don't think they necessarily need to go that route so early if there's better players available or other coveted players available. I like Pregnon here. Again, apologies if I'm saying these wrong. I don't have all the pronunciations down, as you can tell. But I like getting a guard in the mix because I just think they've put some resources into this offensive line. It still stinks. Like, let's be real. And I have a soft spot for rookie and young quarterbacks who get put into these terrible situations where no one can block for them. And I think that sucks, and I think it skews your evaluation of those quarterbacks. So I want to give rookie quarterbacks and younger guys help because I want to see exactly what they can do. I'm skeptical Cam Ward is going to pan out, but if we give him some blockers, at least he has a chance. At least he has a chance to stay calm back there and show us what he can do. So let's keep adding blockers to the Titans. They get someone on defense that they needed badly, but we keep building around Cam Ward in the second round, which I think is also valuable. We're up with the Raiders now. We've got Mendoza. We'd love to add a pass blocker here. They really, really need a pass blocker. Is there anyone that's available here? We've got a guy that's ranked in the late second. We got a couple late second round guys, but we're picking at pick 36. And we don't pick again in this round. Now, the Raiders have a lot of picks. Do we want to trade back and get even more picks? I don't know if that's necessarily wise. Maxx Crosby, we don't know when he's going to be on. We don't know when he's going to leave the Raiders, if ever. The song and dance they play with Crosby, and also Trey Hendrickson for that matter on the Bengals, is like really annoying to me. It's like, do you want to be on the team or do you not want to be on the team? It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what GMs are doing in those private meetings. It's like, tell me if you want to be here or not. That's what I would ask. I don't know if that's what they ask them. Keldrick Falk is the pick. They're going to need to reload at the edge rusher position, whether or not Maxx Crosby stays. And they just need players. And this is a player that can learn and grow along with the Raiders in general. Lastly, we have the Giants. First round, we took Caleb Downs. We kind of went best player available here because, I do think that this is a team that needs more studs just in general. I think they just need more impact players. They need 3 or 4 more guys, and then they can start thinking about contending. I really want an offensive lineman for them here. Let's see how many picks the Giants have in general. So the Giants don't have a 3rd-round pick, and they have a bunch of 6th-rounders. So I think a move down is viable here. I know that's a little disappointing for Giants fans that maybe wanted to see them pick here. But if we move down to 39, I'm looking at Casey Concepcion. Like I said, he has some holes in his game, but at this stage, that's not a terrible pick. We could stick and pick a corner here. We have 2 different corners, which they need desperately. I think I'm actually inclined to do that. We already have a safety, so we can't take McNeil Warren. That pick is not looking as good now that McNeil Warren is sitting here available at number 37. But we'll keep rebuilding the corner room and the secondary in general, and that'll give us a corner and a safety, which I think the Giants need desperately. And then maybe they can work on offensive line a little bit and sprinkle in some other players down the board. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and sorry if my picks weren't what you would do. Sorry if I forgot a guy or two that was buried on this list, but I think I did okay, more or less. I think Lomu could go in the first round for sure. Ty Simpson, I'm fine with having here because, I mean, let's face it, we don't know where he's going. I've heard people that I respect a lot that don't know where he's going. So I like this draft a lot. Other than Sadiq, I think I let him drop way too far. And maybe Mesidor falls farther than this as well. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it. David Bailey, I think, could fall. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. I will see you next time.